Well, it appears that natural light is returned, as you can see. And funny difference how a day makes with the hair. Hope you like it. Sir and Disney here, and we're going to chat a little bit about Halloween Horror Nights. I said once new news broke and new clues were given out, then I would be more than happy to shoot a new video for you guys chronicling all of the goings-on at HHN 24. Whether stuff that we know to be true or stuff that is just merely speculation. That's what this is all about. This is all about speculation. Now, when we know the truth, that's when I will not make it HHN 24 speculation. It will be HHN 24, and that's it. So, yeah. Once we get that, then I'll start talking that way. Now, I have been checking the City of Orlando website daily for new permits to see when they're going to release the Halloween Horror Nights 24 permits for what the locations of the houses will be this year. And, like Dr. Jimmy said, if there is not 8 locations, don't be worried, because obviously there were locations last year that hosted more than one house, so that's the reason they're such ginormous sound stages. So if there's not 8, don't worry about it, it's okay, things will be okay. Oh, and by the way, if you were curious, yes, this is a Wyatt Family t-shirt, and if you see me at the event, chances are one night I will be wearing this exact shirt. So you're seeing pretty much a sneak preview of what you're going to get from me if you run into me at the event. I just want to throw that out there. So, let's talk about these Cassi Clues. So, our next Cassi Clue came in the form of an image. This image, to me, looked like Chinese checkers, but obviously I didn't know any better. And apparently it was listed that this is for the game Go. And Go is basically, this is via Sean Murphy on Facebook, the general strategy of Go is to expand one's territory whenever possible, attack the opponent's weak groups, groups that can possibly be killed, and always stay mindful of the life status of one's own groups. To me it sounds a little bit like Risk, but I don't know because I've never played Risk. Obviously I've never played Go either. Now, this image, of course, had text on it, and it said, "Some are so blind, I'll tell you this truthful, they would live with a demon as long as it was beautiful." So, immediately the first thing that comes to people's minds is, maybe this is possibly Braille, and we're trying to write something out. Well, that was a dead end. And then it was basically decided, thanks to Jeremy, and I'll say Jeremy's name a lot in this video, shout out to Jeremy, that there were a little particulars in this, and it could possibly be maybe coordinates. And sure enough, when the coordinates were put in via whatever internet source was done, they were the coordinates for the location where the sting was filmed. Literally, the alley that the sting was filmed. So, 2 and 2 together equal 4, and that means that that is Sting Alley, and the fact that Sting Alley will be another location of a scare zone this year. But what's the scare zone is the question. And it's pretty much, sounds to me like it's possible that we're talking a little bit about our Japanese folklore, the demons, the kitsune that we talked about in the previous video. That's going to be our street in Sting Alley. If you call it a street, it's basically just an alleyway, hence the name Sting Alley. And that was where Lady Luck's scare zone was. So, I would say that that's probably will happen. And then it's time to start looking more into things. And the reason we think that it's possibly going to be this Japanese folklore, whatever you want to call it, demons, succubus, whatever you want to say, in Sting Alley, is because when Dr. Jimmy did his cryptic performance, talking about the 3 little maids from school, from the Mikado, from Gilbert and Sullivan, it was basically mentioned that this one stings a little. Using context clues, that tells us that we're getting it in Sting Alley, so that makes total sense, that's going to be the case. Now, there's also a possibility that we have a location for our Central Park scare zone. But I'll talk about that when we progress in this video. Excuse me. Now, so we shot that out, and that's going to be the case. Well, our next Cassi clue came in the form of an image. An image of an amber ring with a pentagram in the middle of it, surrounded by pictures of, like, flowers, different kinds of flowers, right? And it said, "How terrible is wisdom when it brings no profit to the wise," which is from Oedipus Rex, from Sophocles. "Ask Johnny," it's his favorite quote. Well, the Johnny in question is Johnny Favorite. Johnny Favorite is a character who is a missing person, played by Mickey Rourke in a 1987 film called Angel Heart, which relies heavily on voodoo. As a matter of fact, he put his soul up for collateral in a deal with Satan in return for stardom. It's kind of like a more extreme version of the George Burns movie, Oh God. Literally, it was Oh God, You Devil. Like 3. So, basically, he wanted to get out of the contract when he died, so he stole the soul of someone else and all of his memories and implanted them in himself in an attempt to find his true self. It's a wacky movie, and it's really, really, really out there. But here's the question. Obviously, the connection is through this quote. This quote was taken from this film. And this is interesting because Angel Heart is based on a novel called Falling Angel. The French title for Falling Angel is Le Sabbat dans Central Park. Yep. You know what this tells me? Right there, it says the word Central Park, which means this is going to be a Central Park scare zone. Supposedly, if we're believing what we're thinking right now. Furthermore to that, the story in Falling Angel is that it takes place in New York, but then it shifts to New Orleans. New Orleans. Voodoo. Dr. Jimmy singing about New Orleans from Oh Streetcar from The Simpsons, and then humming the Simpsons theme at the end. That also made me believe that it could possibly be Simpsons humming at the end, even though it is the theme of the series that the song was from. It also could have been a cryptic way to get to the fact that we're talking about a sprung behind The Simpsons, or potentially the Parade Building, which is where I would put American Horror Story Coven season if that's what we end up getting. But I'm not sure about that. Too many signs pointing to the fact that we possibly could get The Walking Dead back. That's what happens when you don't edit, folks. And if we get The Walking Dead back, there's no American Horror Story this year. And when I made the comment on A Horror Night Nightmares, why would you start Season 3 on a new property that you're going to be able to play up for many years to come? The response was, it doesn't matter, it's an anthology, so they could start in the middle, it's the most popular season. So, we're jumping to this conclusion, and we're thinking that it still might be American Horror Story. Lots of reasons to believe that. Well, there's also another connection as well with this potential original Voodoo property. This obviously would be either a house or the aforementioned scare zone in Central Park, which makes perfect sense that would end up being the case. Now, there's something else to it as well. Now, Mystic Freak was doing a little Facebook searching, and she ended up going through a lot of Googling and found an image of kind of like a gypsy caravan. Like the flowers basically equal out to gypsies. And if you Google gypsy caravan carvings, you get some sort of a version of the background of the amber ring. Well, we have also mentioned another thing in this, and that is the fact that there is already a fortune-telling mystic, a gypsy, who can tell the future, who has been connected to the event already, and that would be the Dust Witch from Something Wicked This Way Comes. Thank you, Jeremy, yet again for coming up with that. And apparently Gina said that there is a gypsy festival in Central Park. Another reason why this could possibly be in Central Park. So are we getting voodoo in Central Park? And potentially when we get our American Horror Story Coven house, that is when Universal Art and Design are going to design the voodoo house that they have wanted to do for a long time, that obviously Deathwater Bayou at Busch Gardens in Tampa already beat them to. But, like a guess. Again, that's purely speculation. That's just a guess. Let's talk about Dr. Jimmy's cryptic performance. Sometimes they're really hard to distinguish what's going on, but this one, at least on the surface, seemed a little bit easier than others. Now, again, that could mean that we're all off the track and we're not right, but it seems a little too likely for all of us to be wrong about this. So, Dr. Jimmy does his next cryptic performance, and he says he was worried, that's the reason why he stopped after 8. He was worried that one of his cryptic performances would have to be altered, given the fact that Alter was released as our first code name here in Orlando. And presumably that made me believe that that bumped an original. So that's what we're possibly looking at. Dr. Jimmy then said that basically he does not have to get rid of a performance. You know how Eraser became acrostic last year when FX didn't want to play ball, so they had to bring in Evil Dead at the last minute? Yeah. That's basically what I'm talking about. And sure enough, there is not going to have to be any changes. Which means whatever the intellectual property that is codenamed Alter was not performed yet. So Dr. Jimmy can feel free to do another one, and he does here. Like I said before in the previous video, I think that we are getting 15 cryptic performances. Potentially 16 if you want to go into something else. Maybe 17, who knows. Less than 20, though. That's what I'm thinking. Because I think we get 8 houses. Obviously, we know we get 8 houses. And we're going to get 7 street experiences this year. 7 set scare zones is what it looks like. I could be totally off on that. And there's reasons to believe that I could be right and I could be wrong. So who knows. I guess we'll see when the time comes. So this one is leading speculation that Dr. Jimmy was just talking about 8 houses, that's why he stopped. Obviously, that's not true. It's a mixture of houses and scare zones, as we have pretty much decrypted already. Thanks to all my friends on Facebook for helping us with that. This song was really interesting, and it was Kitty Witty Winkies from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And the song is performed by a character called the Child Catcher. It's really interesting. And the reason why it's interesting, it's something that I called in January. And I think is really going to come to the event. Now, I'll explain how it works on numerous levels here. Number 1, we're talking about the Child Catcher, catching children, potentially eating children. Obviously, the Child Catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang didn't go to that extreme, but creatures do. And obviously, La Llorona last year, that creature did. And it looks to me like we're getting 2 years in a row of urban legends that eat children. Which means that Halloween Horror Nights 25 does not need to have an urban legend that eats children. Unless we're just going to be doing child-eating urban legend houses at Halloween Horror Nights. Okay, there's probably plenty of them. But, obviously, this jumps out immediately under a couple of things. Number 1, the first thing that jumps to mind is El Cucuy. And I'll shoot with you guys. For the pronunciation, I actually wrote it out on my notepad here that I'm reading upwards. You always wonder why I'm looking upwards. I'm actually reading something. Now, I know most of you out there probably have your computer in line like this. If you're sitting at your desk, you have your computer right in front of you. Mine's actually above me because I use mine as my television monitor because that's just how I roll. So basically, El Cucuy. And to allude more to Dr. Jimmy's Tumblr, which is the first time I'm going to mention that in this video, not the last, there was a picture from Machete Kills. Lots of images from Machete Kills. And obviously, in Machete Kills, who plays Machete? Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo was the narrator of the El Cucuy house in Hollywood last year. So that leads us to believe we're getting the El Cucuy maze this year. But I'm not going in that route. Obviously, Dr. Jimmy also posted a picture of the Boogeyman under the bed, and there were the Babadook, which kind of looks a little bit like a Boogeyman, if you will, on his Tumblr as well. Now, we can't guarantee any of this is a guaranteed clue, but more often than not, it seems like it is. Lately, obviously, he's been posting a lot about the upcoming Tony Awards, which comes up next month, so I can understand that. So, obviously, that stuff probably does not have to do with anything, but there's a few things that he did post recently that may just have something to do with anything, and it makes perfect sense that it would. So, El Cucuy. Well, I don't think it's El Cucuy because I don't think that we get an El Cucuy house. I think that, personally, to make money and to save on costs of making new merchandise, the only reason we would get El Cucuy is if we could just, like, piggyback off of Hollywood's merch and do the same thing we did with La Llorona last year. That's the only thing I can see. And the tie into Danny Trejo, maybe, who knows. But what I think is this actually equals out to a Boogeyman house. And we are getting the Boogeyman as our urban legend. Not El Cucuy, but El Cucuy could be in the house. I'm pretty positive El Cucuy will be in the house. So, this is an interesting connection. There's also an interesting connection. And this connection is to Richard O'Brien. Of course, Richard O'Brien is Riff Raff in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And basically, Richard O'Brien, in 2007, in September, he played the child catcher for the last 2 weeks of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's 5-year British run. And then also did it in Singapore in November, and it went all the way to December 9th. So, this is interesting. Richard O'Brien. Obviously, what's the thing that jumps to mind? Rocky Horror Picture Show. And it's interesting because could this mean that we're getting an illusion? That's not even a word. I don't believe it is, at least. Are we alluding to a fact that we're getting the Rocky Horror Picture Show again this year, and not the aforementioned Jack the Clown show that we heard about back in December? I doubt it, but it could be, and also could be a potential connection to that Rocky Horror house that I talked about in the last video. That, like I said, that's just something like wishful thinking. Probably will never happen. And I'm sure this isn't Rocky Horror, but it's interesting to think about. HHN Trogdor had an idea for this to connect to Trick or Treat. Sounds like we are getting Trick or Treat in the event this year. I don't know if it's a house necessarily. There is a connection to Masquerade. Actually, Tim on Horror Night Nightmares said something about it being potentially Masquerade being a connection. And also alluded to Bioshock, potentially, through the Behind the Thrills article we talked about during the last video. Don't know about that. Don't know if Bioshock's coming to the event or not. Maybe next year, but I don't know about this year. Who knows? We still could get a video game property. I still think we get Resident Evil Street Experience this year, so I think Resident Evil gets a street. I think it'd be funny if The Walking Dead actually got a house and Resident Evil got the street in front of it, but there's so much red tape you'd have to cut through to get that done, so don't think that's going to happen. So, there's another connection, and that is the fact that there is a Boogeyman, and the Boogeyman in Germany. The reason I'm saying Germany is because obviously Dr. Jimmy utilized a German/Austrian song, and it didn't really matter, really. But it's funny because Der Schwarzmann, which is a literal translation, basically to the Dark Man, looks a little bit like Papa Lazaro from League of Gentlemen. Very interesting. And also, make mention of Dr. Emmett Brown 1 for talking about the Pied Piper of Hamelin, as well as the Rat Catcher, and that connection as well. Now, Schwartz isn't referring to the skin color of the Dark Man, it's referring to the fact that the monster likes to hide in the dark. Also makes allusion to, like I said, the Babadook from the picture earlier. So yeah, I really think that this is alluding to our Urban Legends Boogeyman house. I don't think it's El Cucuy, I think it's the Boogeyman in general. And I think there's so many different versions of the Boogeyman you can go to. Wasn't there someone else that was called the Boogeyman that may or may not have a sister at one point? Someone that likes to wear a white mask? I don't know, I mean, the guy must like Star Trek because he likes looking like him. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows? It's potential that, nah, not gonna happen, sorry. Yeah. Not gonna happen. If that does happen, obviously, it will be a house. It's not gonna be like an Easter egg in the house. I will say also that we're gonna talk a little bit more about the fact that we have scare zone potentials. It sounds like our vampire property that we were thinking was going to be a house, it may end up being a scare zone instead. It's funny because Dr. Jimmy was talking about Free Fallin' in his last cryptic comments from last year, and Free Fallin' connected to the vampires. Move west down Ventura Boulevard, obviously connecting to San Francisco, so vampires in San Francisco. And I talked to Mystic Freak last night about a potential chainsaw drill team made up of vampires. Don't know if that would work or not, but it'd be interesting. Chainsaw vampires. I know she wants chainsaw clowns, and we probably will get them eventually, but chainsaw vampires. Interesting. Interesting, interesting. There seems to be a lot of possibilities. We're going to get a lot of things from different events. And this time, not just from Hollywood. It sounds like we have an allusion to a lot of Singapore properties. And if that is the case, that would be awesome. Because the pictures I have seen from the Singapore event last year look spectacular. I like the characters of the Evil Sisters, and Songs of Death would be an awesome house. And if we get our street experience with the Kitsune or the Demon Geishas, I think that that's going to be kind of patterned after the Singapore event. And there's obviously the Attack of the Vampires, which could be an allusion to our vampire scare zone, potentially. Who knows? Now, Dr. Jimmy has been posting some on his Tumblr, and his latest have been talking a lot about Masquerade, and obviously Masquerade from the Phantom of the Opera, which was the first cryptic performance. A lot of people have connected Masquerade to Halloween, and it sounds like it's a very good possibility. Some have connected it to Trick or Treat. I'm the only one that connected it to Insidious because of Patrick Wilson being in Phantom of the Opera. But, here's the thing. Let's look at it from this perspective. There's pictures on the Tumblr, currently, and here what they are. There's Kate Beckinsale in a Masquerade ball from Van Helsing. There is John Cusack and Alice Eve from The Raven, also in a Masquerade ball. The original Phantom, the Opera Luminata, and a revenge episode entitled Masquerade. These are all basically pictures of people with masks around them. The Rothschild Illuminati ball, at least the closest I could get to it. The literal Mask of the Red Death. Two Poe connections, that's interesting. The Wicker Man, and the Romeo and Juliet ball, as well as the Beggar Woman, Laura Michelle Kelly from Sweeney Todd. And a 4-part picture of Johnny Sorrow, The King in Yellow, which is an H.P. Lovecraft novel, the Burger King King that freaks everyone out, and an image called Secrecy and Magic. I wear no mask, I tell no secrets, and a really awesome, obviously, picture that is, could possibly be something of Dr. Jimmy just sitting there wearing a mask holding Bob in his arms. So yeah, that's rather interesting. And, does it mean anything? Who knows? Allusion to Masquerade, possibly. Masquerade also could be something that will not happen, and that is the fact that we could get the return of a parade. But like was mentioned so many times, there's way too much congestion if they want to do a parade. And obviously with the daytime parade, there's no way that they would go ahead and do that as well. But it's something to think about, right? Maybe something involving Edgar Allan Poe, potentially. That'd be pretty awesome, because we have the Mask of the Red Death and the Raven both alluded to. But I think this is more talking about Masquerade itself. I'm surprised there's no pictures right now from A Clockwork Orange yet. I'm sure that'll come. I know I saw the Eyes Wide Shut picture, so Clockwork Orange is the only thing that's really missing from this. So who knows what's going to happen with that. It seems more and more likely that we're going to start getting some reveals sooner rather than later. Like I said, the video that Mike Aiello filmed in the Universal Archive room that we're going to be getting soon. It's the end of the month now, so soon should be coming soon. Soon should be coming in about 4 days, potentially, or maybe soon is coming in a couple of weeks. So yeah, who knows? Yeah, we could have a reveal on the 25th, which is a Sunday, or we could have a reveal on the 7th, which is a Saturday. Who knows? That's June 7th, by the way, if you're playing along at home. Because I don't think that The Purge is our first reveal. I think The Purge is announced on July 18th when the movie comes out, when Anarchy comes out, the sequel. So I think that's when we're going to get our announcement of The Purge. Now, what's the question right now? How many original properties and how many intellectual properties are we getting this year? Now, there was a mention originally that Dr. Jimmy alluded to on Facebook that we were getting 5 IPs this year. Well, what I think is there's a possibility that obviously we've got IP scare zones, which I'm thinking will happen. Like I said, the Resident Evil experience and the Purge, obviously, which the Purge could end up where Cabin in the Woods was last year if they're going to be a Purge house connected to the street, which I think the Purge gets the front of the park. I think the Purge is actually going to be our opening ceremony, and I think that is going to be awesome. But if it gets a house, I think that it gets the Cabin in the Woods, because Cabin in the Woods was the first house you came to last year when you walked into the park. So that's the direction I'm going with that. Or maybe everybody runs from the front gate to the Purge house. I mean, anything could happen. It's anyone's guess that Purge is actually going to get a house this year. I think it's possible. I think it's a very good possibility, but there's no way of knowing either way if it's going to happen or not. Purge gets the street for sure. It's one of the street experiences, guaranteed, but I don't know exactly if they're going to go with a house as well as a tie-in. A tie-in, obviously, to Purge Anarchy, which comes out on July 18th, just like I alluded to a little bit ago. So, yeah, the word of the day apparently is alluded, so yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah, that's pretty much what we've got for right now. And there's always more information that has to come out. Once it does, I'll shoot you guys out a video. Obviously, there has been a change in Hollywood with John Murdy changing the code name for Malcolm to Empire. So I probably should do a Hollywood video sometime soon. I think I'll do that soon, so I don't know exactly when I'm going to talk about that. And there was a really interesting Snapchat of a picture of the woods and a full moon in the woods that makes me truly believe that the announcement of An American Werewolf in London is coming to Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood this year. Just my speculation, though. Who knows? We'll talk about that in the Hollywood video. I'll promise you that. We'll do a Hollywood video, because I know all of you out there don't necessarily... You obviously want to hear about both events, but you can't go to the Orlando event, you can't go to the Hollywood event. I can't go to Hollywood, but I still speculate on it, and I can go to Orlando. I am going to Orlando, so obviously I'm going to speculate on that because I'm going to be at the event. But that's just my 2 cents for the day, and obviously when any news breaks, and I am going to check on camera if any news has broken, because the last time I did this, the second I finished that long video, that almost hour-long video that I shot out to you guys, there was information that was released. That's actually when the second Cassi Clue went down. So, yeah, that was information that went down. Let's see. Alright. So, it's possible that's the case. And yeah, okay, just normal stuff, so we're good. So, let's do our shout-outs to everyone, all of the Horror Night Updaters. Obviously, shout-out to Dr. Jimmy for his continuation on his awesome cryptic performances. Very much looking forward to seeing you again this year, sir. Obviously, I want to shout-out my good friend Psycho Massacre Films and Dr. Emmett Brown 1 from the Horror Night Updaters. I obviously want to shout-out UKHHN, you're a really awesome dude, and Mr. Horror Nights and the Red Steel TV from the Horror Night Updaters as well. Check them out on Horror Nights Updaters. As well as a newcomer who I really enjoy his videos. That's the Crazy Englishman. And you can check him out, Crazy Englishman, on YouTube. There's links here on the bottom in the description bar. As well as Thrill Seeker Network. And I want to shout out HHN Fan I6, who will be doing videos again soon. Welcome back, HHN Trogdor. It's been so long. And Admiral HHN, it's been a while, but hopefully you'll be doing videos soon. And obviously, quick shout-outs to all the awesome people I've been chatting with on Facebook and Twitter trying to break everything apart. And obviously Jeremy and Mystic Freak and Sean and Gina is now out of that list too. And so many people I want to talk about because of this event. And I've met because of this event, met via chatting with them. Obviously, I want to shout out some more people. And Brian Carter, too. So, yeah, definitely. All of you are awesome. And real quick, before I go, before I finish this, I know I forgot about this, actually. I kind of did. There was the picture, there was the Cassi Clue, which was, obviously, it was basically alluding to the Who Am I? And Who Am I, obviously, the first thing that came to mind pretty much was Jack the Clown. Well, the second part of the Who Am I, a lot of people thought was talking about fear itself, literally fear, since it's bringing back Jack and everything. Well, Jack escaped from the lantern, you know how the steez works. But maybe we're talking about Dr. Oddfellow, and maybe Oddfellow will be getting his revenge at Halloween Horror Nights 24. Who knows? Maybe Dr. Oddfellow is possibly going to be doing something, not necessarily himself. Obviously, Dr. Oddfellow's dead, or so we think. But maybe Dr. Oddfellow has something in mind. Maybe Dr. Oddfellow has somebody from a face-off that may come to the event in hopes to try to take out Jack once and for all. Who knows? Something to think about. So, in the meantime, if you do like these videos, tell your friends about them, leave a comment, leave a like, do subscribe, and spread the word about Pop, which is my channel here. And if you'd like to send me a message on Facebook, you can be my friend on Facebook. Send me a friend request. It's Owen Disney. If you'd like to like our Facebook fan page, it's Sir Owen Disney Pop. Thank you, everyone out there that's already liked the Facebook fan page. And if you haven't liked it, go out and get on your Facebook and like that Sir Owen Disney Pop Facebook fan page. And as well, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, and I'm sure a lot of you out there have been, and I've enjoyed chatting with all of you. Hopefully I'll see some of you at the event this year. It is Sir Owen Disney on Twitter. And finally, if you'd like to send any sort of message to me, old school style, send me an email. You're more than welcome to. We can talk Horror Nights, we can talk Disney, wrestling. You can ask me questions about the event or about myself, because obviously I can't open up as much about some things here. If you're really curious, you're more than welcome to send me an email, siroandisney@gmail.com. In the meantime, I do want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching, and until tomorrow, boys and girls, that's all I got to say about that.